G'day all, I'm Weird and welcome to Invasions Explained. I've got two invasions for you here today, and the first one starts in the Divine Tower of Caelid. It's a fairly strange circumstance I invade this time, with no host and apparently the elevator descending, but the most interesting thing is the Black Flame Monk, and I notice by the pink mist that he is emitting that he has been bewitched using a bewitching branch. This means that he will attack me in priority to the host. He is essentially on the host's side, but still able to hit them with their attacks, although they will target invaders. Now this is a bad position because this Black Flame Monk is notoriously chunky, and this is a very enclosed area with basically no cover. Fortunately, the host turns up very shortly, and it's quite apparent as to what he's doing when he arrives and immediately heals the Black Flame Monk. This tells me everything I need to know about my circumstance. Essentially, what is happening here is that I'm trapped in a kill box with a very powerful mob and someone who will repeatedly heal it until either I die or I manage to catch them. Now, my immediate instinct is to grab the lift and get myself out of this situation, but I realize very quickly that if there's a trap set down here, there's almost certainly a trap set at the top of the elevator. So, I turn around and I try and figure out what can be done. Very quickly I notice that I'm doing very low amounts of damage to this Black Flame Monk, but I've got a bit of a trick up my sleeve with this build because bleed does percentile damage. And that means that I'm able to burn through this monk's HP very quickly before the host can do anything about it. This was an important thing for me to do because if I had taken my time about it and tried to whittle down the monk, the host would have healed it over and over again. And because they're wearing Bullgoat and are obviously rune arched, they have quite chunky health bar themselves, so trying to focus on either one would have been a bad time if I wasn't capable of that very chunky burst damage. Unfortunately for this host, I am very much capable of that damage, and that monk dies very quickly, allowing me to focus on the host. Now their tactic is pretty basic, but it is surprisingly effective. Essentially what we've got here is a dedicated poise caster. They're avoiding me as much as possible to heal up. They've got a very large health pool, and once I start to aggress, they will simply start to spam Bloodflame Talons, or whatever they're called. Basically this means that I can't really get near them at all while they're casting. They are essentially safe for as long as they can cast that because I don't have any long-ranged weapons with which to take them out. I did come up with one plan though, and I used a volcano pot to essentially try and area deny them the place where they were casting that spell, but they truly do not care at all, and they just keep casting straight through that, and I misjudge the hitbox and get hit by it once again. This proves to be a bit of a harder nut to crack, and so I change over to the small thrusting sword. This allows me to do much more pressure and apply a much more oppressive environment. And of course, because I'm applying so much pressure, they don't have that time to back up and heal, they don't have that time to back up and start casting, they don't have time to cast before I've hit and ducked out, and they fold very quickly because that was their only plan. They did not have a plan B. Our second invasion takes place in the War-Dead Catacombs, and I notice immediately that there's something pretty strange about this one because there's another invader just kind of waiting for me. Now, I gather that this is a trap because of three factors. The first thing I notice is that my co-invader is behaving very cautiously. That generally doesn't happen for no reason. The second thing I notice is that I can see a phantom with Mohg's spear. That's a big Ash of War, and if we're going to push up a narrow staircase like that, we're definitely going to take damage clearing the way. Third thing I notice is the most important, and it's the fact that there's a big old pit right off to the side there, and that I can't see all of the angles that cover it. So that means if there's someone with knockback spells, or a pull Ash of War, or pull spells like Collapsing Stars or Radahn's Swords, that's going to be an immediate death trap if I'm not careful. Now by itself, this isn't exactly a tough situation to crack. There are a couple of ways you can go about it, but I chose to show this one because my co-invader and I came up with two completely different attitudes. What my co-invader immediately does is use the Iron Jar Aromatic. This basically makes him unstaggerable for all intents and purposes. I, on the other hand, get out my Albinoric pot and prepare to let him essentially take the first volley. Now, lo and behold, there is Collapsing Stars. If my co-invader hadn't had the Iron Jar active, then he would have been pulled straight off the edge and would currently be falling to his death. I managed to go in between the ticks of the Mohg's spear, which was what I was trying to time, and because the mage was focusing on my co-invader, who I let go in first, he has no time to queue up another cast to target me, meaning I can slip straight through the trap while the other phantom is occupied, and start pressuring the mage. At this point, their trap has essentially collapsed from 2 directions. This is just mop up at this point. Here we can see the importance of having a plan B, because if your trap doesn't work, you don't want to be in a circumstance where your only option is to die. And that's that invasion explained. I'll see you next time.